We have made it another Tuesday evening of Bossier Watch, and we are actually live at the moment now. I don't think we've got anybody. Well, there's a couple of people coming in, so maybe everybody will get the notifications. I am desperately trying to
You
change our topics.
you mean to tell me that there are people that are not sitting on pins and needles watching the debates happen across the country everywhere other than here?
Well, I guess not. What debates are happening? I hadn't been paying attention. I'm out of the loop.
Well, I heard there's debates all across the country. You got all these Senate races and these congressional races, and I mean, there are debates everywhere. That's all I heard on the mainstream media is debates, debates, debates. Everybody's going to be tuned in tonight.
Well, talking about debates, so while we're just sitting here kind of jaw jacking for a few minutes, I want to address something. So we had talked about early on, and as a matter of fact, we made some efforts towards trying to have a Shreveport mayoral debate. And I think it's pretty much out of the question for us being able to put it together. But I got to say this after seeing how many forums or town halls or debates or whatever you want to call them, I mean, it's like there's got to be like two or three a week now. I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't have one. It would have been lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And, that was one of the reasons that we had talked about doing it was because the debates that we did in the past,
Right.
we actually gave the candidates opportunities to kind of go at it with each other. I mean, and it wasn't where we formulated the questions, the candidates formed the questions. And if they wanted to direct the candidates to the other candidates, they could, and we let them go at it. And I think that would have been productive in the Shreveport mayor's race.
True.
It may be in the runoff, but yeah, you're right. I agree. I'm kind of glad that we didn't.
I mean, it was
I
just one thing after another, or it seems to me it's like all I can see is debate. All you hear on Keel, listen to Robert, or well,
Mike and Aaron.
Mike and Aaron, whatever they're called now. Anyway, is well, there was another forum last night. It's like, what are they doing? Having them every night?
That's right. That's right.
Uh,
Well,
let's
hey,
reach out to some people that are coming in the commentary. Oh, I see your lovely bride. She says some of us are still working. This is work too. It may not seem like it, and we don't get paid, but it is work.
that's right. So everybody, Kara Harridge Lowry is still up at Ye Olde Acadiana Mortgage. I would argue the oldest independent lender in Northwest Louisiana is still up there trying to do a home loan for folks. So need a home loan tonight? Call her. She's there. She can hook you up.
That's almost radio class advertising right there. That
That
was
was a
excellent.
that was an absolutely selfish plug right there, wasn't it?
Yeah, but hey, we do this for free. We just ask for donations or a little coffee money or whatever, and we got a couple of folks that help us out.
Oh,
Uh,
now see, Jimmy Richardson is pulling at your shirt strings there.
let's see. Shiners have been good crappie. Oh yeah, Lake Erling. Love Lake Erling. Absolutely some monster crappie up in Lake Erling. So
Well, we got Larry James Hawkins, Barbara Murray. Hello, Miss Barbara. Penny Cater Davis. Carrie
yeah, Carrie
got,
Siska.
yeah. Linda Hammeter. Robin Simmons. Janice Nyland. Mike Cummins Jr. Martin
Holy,
Rigg. Hello, all of y'all.
and I love the name and the profile picture there. Martin Riggs, one of my all-time favorite movies. Anyway, so we're up to about 72 people already. 4 minutes into this. Hey, we got some pretty good stuff. I don't have all the topics up there on the screen yet, but first of all, we've got Jeff Sadow on, and we are going to talk numbers and Bossier City. That should be interesting.
Yeah, y'all know Jeff, long time political, monetary guy. I mean, I'll let him describe himself. I'm just saying my recollection. I remember when I went to work for Bossier City. I remember reading some of his articles. About Bossier City way back then, and look forward to hearing some of his ideas and some of his insights into the finances and goings ons in Bossier City. And then Rex, I think we said last show we were going to kind of go over the constitutional amendments this show as well too, didn't we?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, I've got the PAR guide to the constitutional amendments. I've got some checks for yes and some checks for no that are kind of our recommendations. We'll look at them and talk about them, and you and I may differ on a couple of them. And there are suggestions, though, and I'll post them after the show as its own post, and that way you folks out there watching can use these as a guide. Now, we always suggest, don't just go by what we say or somebody else does. Read up on them yourself, follow or listen to others' recommendations, and then make your decision. And I usually take one of these little guides, take a screenshot of it and take it in there in the voting booth with me. That way I can just go down and check them off pretty easy. So, yeah, we're going to talk about those constitutional amendments as promised. And we're going to start down the rabbit hole again of the library and the police jury and little old ladies.
Not the police jury, the Bossier Parish Police Jury?
Yeah, well, we took our attention and we've been focused on the city council for so long because they're so entertaining. I mean, we're going to have to show some of King David tonight. But the city council is so entertaining that we've taken our eye off the police jury, and apparently the takeover of the library is almost complete. And I didn't say that in my Darth Vader, James Earl Jones voice, but anyway.
Yeah, well, the police jury isn't the only ones making some moves because Walk on Water, he's making some moves too.
Really? Oh, MJ.
He
who hath the silvery tongue.
Yes, he is. If you'll share my screen, I will enlighten everyone to what I'm talking about.
Well, whoa. Wow. Hey, he's got a few more gray hairs.
Yeah, he's still got a little gray. Well, it looks like he is busy with endorsing candidates for school board.
Oh, is that that Faulting guy? I don't think
Eric
I've ever met
Faulting.
him. Okay.
Now look, I don't know if I'd say it was a Nastagram, but we got a proton mail, and somebody said something to the effect of, "Why are y'all not putting on a debate between Eric Faulting and his opponent?" And I don't know. I don't think that it would be a fruitful debate. I don't myself.
Well,
we hadn't talked about it, but I'm just saying it.
Yeah, and look, let's give a little shout out to another Facebook page that was it Sobo Live. They did a Facebook Live the other night, and I watched it for a little bit, and they had some pretty good topics on there, mostly related to the school board, of course. So we'd encourage you to go over there and watch the Sobo Live too.
Yeah, but just wanted to point out here, Mike Johnson, Walk on Water Johnson, isn't. Well, it doesn't say endorse, but I mean, he's pointing
he's
there.
Pointing right at him.
That's your guy. He's pointing at him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that means he's all in on Eric Faulting right there.
Well, we'll see.
Do you think that? What are y'all watching? Do y'all think that's what that means?
Looks like he says he's saying he's the guy to me. I mean, it is what it is. So.
I think so.
All right, well, we're about 8 minutes in. We've got 82 people watching so far across Facebook and YouTube. We're also on YouTube Live as well. So why don't we go ahead and do our little countdown, our intro, and we'll come back, bring in our guest, and let's get started. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right, folks, for those of you that are new to the show, the way this works is we're going to be gone for about 3 minutes. You'll see a countdown and some other stuff on the screen for a little bit. This is your chance to share and tag folks and let folks know that the show is on, and also time for you to go make a stiff drink and make a bag of popcorn. So we'll be right back here in about 3 minutes, as long as I hit the right button here. Here we go.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
In all honesty, we try to lay low a little bit because of the fear that we would not be able to camp there.
And I titled it, A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Hello everybody, I don't think I've ever done a video before on here, but yeah, I wanted to tell y'all what frustrates me a little bit about permits.
Cockroach of the week is, drumroll please, Allie Feaster Smith.
We can't be apathetic about what's going on in our state. We have to all pull up our bootstraps and get on top of this. So you're right. There's a problem out there. I mean, and man, you can see it everywhere.
Well, look, we have allowed government to become our wherewithal to everything.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
You're about to be killed by a Zamboni, or you're gonna die in 5 minutes.
This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by David B. Womack for all your contracting and construction needs. The Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Michael Ferris. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Ha! We made it through another, I say this every week, but we made it through another countdown. 129 plus shows now.
Well, hey, did you hear the gnashing of teeth in New York today or yesterday?
Oh, no, I didn't.
The New York Supreme Court gave all those people that refused the COVID vaccine, they gave them all their job back, made them hire them all back. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't. So that's interesting.
Whoo! Yeah, we're gonna have to get with Jill Hines and see about getting her on the show again to come and talk to us about some of the things that's going on. It's turning out that all the conspiracy theorists, on the COVID vaccine, the, stay at home and the mask and all that stuff, turning out to, we said it, the mask didn't work. It's turned out that everybody was right on that. That was saying no to all those things.
Yeah, I'll keep it real simple and not get on my soapbox, but just a second. But I never said that the virus wasn't real or that people were not dying from the virus or other complications associated with it and all that. But it's just that the mask and their implementation across the population was almost, I won't say completely, but almost completely worthless. So we'll just leave it at that.
Well, getting to the bottom of things, I mean, we've got a treat tonight for everybody that'll be watching this show, and we've got a special guest, right?
We do. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can successfully get him in the show. Let me switch screens here. And Jeff, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right. Glad to have you. And we'll just get started. Where do we want to lead off, Duke? Have Jeff tell us a little bit about himself or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, I followed this guy for, good grief. I think the early 90s or maybe even the late 80s, I've followed him since then. But a lot of folks may not know about Jeff. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself to people that may not know you.
Yeah, it would be the early 90s. I came to LSUS in 1981 and I did a little occasionally for elections and the like.
or maybe some other things. I'd be on TV occasionally. Occasionally I do a guest column in the Shreveport Times. I'd be a regular columnist there for about a year and a half, I think 97 to 98. Some of you may actually remember me from radio, done from 1996 to 2000, on KCL, back when it was a Christian contemporary station. Then really picked up about 2002 writing for something that a number of you may be familiar with, FaxNet Update, which lasted a number of years and went away with
Lou
the demise
Gehrig.
of its editor. Yes, Lou Gehrig Burnett. And did some other things. I wrote for the Advocate in Baton Rouge between, 2015, 2019. I had been writing for Hannah Publication Newspapers. That's a small chain in Northeast Louisiana since 2013. And blog now since 2005. Actually, I've got 3 of them. There's one's kind of the main one. It's called Between the Lines, and is republished in the Hayride pretty much every post, 5 days a week. During the legislative session, I have one called the Louisiana Legislative Log. That's also been going since 2005. There we just identify bills of interest, good and bad, and chart their course throughout the legislative session, sometimes special sessions. And then most recently, I started one called Bossier Views. That was back in July. And what basically it just republishes what I publish in Between the Lines. That has anything to do with Bossier at all. And I've been pleased with it. Thanks for the mentions about it. I've got a number of subscribers now, and just keep trying to grind out some interesting stuff that anybody interested in Bossier politics would like to know about.
Yeah, I can say that I've enjoyed reading. I mean, I've always enjoyed reading your stuff, but the Bossier Views, you've been cranking out a lot of stuff on that and some pretty interesting articles. Matter of fact, we'll get into King David here in a second, but you shot one out today. What was that one about? I just saw it come in the email, but I hadn't read it yet. Can you give us a quick summary?
Yeah, well, what mentioned last week at the city council meeting was the sale of the 2 alternative fuel stations by the city. And it's kind of got a history there. And what the piece goes into is you look at what's going on with the financials behind the stations and say compare that to the arena. And if you're looking at those as the metric, if you're going to head and sell the stations, then you better be sure you sell the arena, because it's a much bigger money loser. And there was a lot of controversy over the parking fee, not only the fact that there now is a $12 parking fee there, but it doesn't work very well. And some other things don't work around the arena. So you want to find out a little bit more, you can check it out. It's now the lead post at Bossier Views.
Well, now that's interesting you say that about the parking fees, because I heard, Tommy the Chandler on Keel saying to Aaron and Mike that, hey, we'll see how it works out, and then we'll come back and we'll let you know whether it worked or it didn't work. So I haven't heard that he's been back on Keel.
Yeah, I know. According to social media, that there were some problems. So, yeah, let's see what happens. What the next step here is. If that's what the mayor said, well then, I think somebody needs to be working on this.
Well, I can't stand it since we mentioned the parking deal. I've got to play my little video. Um, so you may not know the movie Tremors, Jeff. Maybe you do, but anyway, it's had oh, what's the guy's name? Anyway, let me just play it, and it'll make sense here in a second.
Because we want to know what we should do.
You guys do what you do best. Find something simple and complicated.
Okay, so that's what the government does best. Take something simple like parking and complicate it.
Well, Rex, to really kind of get down into the meat and potatoes of what we have Jeff on for tonight, I think we had in show 124, and I think we had coined that show as King David Returns, and there was an exchange between, Chris Smith and King David, and you want to gin that one up and let's play that, and then we'll get
Yeah,
Jeff's comment on that. I think he may have already commented on it, but we'll get him to say it again.
yeah, and so like Duke said, this is an exchange between Chris Smith and King David himself, and they step on each other's toes a little bit, but King David goes off into his little spiel, so let's listen to it for just a second. Let me see, I should have it queued up. Hit
You're
play.
inferring that we do not have financial success at this time and we don't prepare in future budgets 5 years out what capital outlay is going to be. I'm at a loss to understand why all of a sudden you propose something that we hadn't done before and we don't do it at other parks.
Well,
So
excuse me,
what I'm
to your
saying
point,
though is
Mr.
we have
Montgomery.
maintained our finances. We have balanced our budget since '09, which you weren't around then. We had to make the necessary cuts. All the fire, the police, all the municipal employees, everyone had to make a sacrifice. From that time forward, we ensure that we have the capital needs. We have the money for those capital needs.
And I don't disagree with that.
Well, what you're proposing is says that we have something in the future that we're going to have a need for, which it does not make sense what you're proposing. You're wanting to take this man's profit and say that we don't have the funding available in the future or may not have the funding.
Well, Mr. Montgomery, I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe you do, but.
Well, I sure go on my record, not empty promises. I look back at me and what this council has done. I sure do. You're right.
Let it be noted that the chair recognized Mr. Smith. Ms. Montgomery, we will get your comments next.
Just to follow up, I'm not saying that Bossier City currently is irresponsible with money, but we will not all seven be sitting in these chairs forever. Eventually, people are going to come after us, and they're going to make decisions that affect the future of Bossier City. I am saying let's think forward and not just worry about today, but what could happen in the future and prepare ourselves.
All right, bear with it just another minute.
I don't think it's radical. I think it's being fiscally conservative and saying that, hey, there's going to come a time where a very expensive repair may come, and we already have the money to do it, and we don't have to go into the general fund to get that money. So that's my comments.
You little whippersnapper.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes. Well, number one, we don't use the general fund except for operating. We do not use general fund money, fund balance, for capital expenditures. It seems like what we need to do is have a lesson for certain individuals about how the budget works here in Bossier City and how we allocate
Point of order,
funds.
Mr.
Do I have
President?
the floor, Mr. President?
Order, please. Mr. Montgomery has the floor.
So we have set forth a financial plan which has been very successful for the last 13 years. And we separate our funding for operational expenses, which is the general fund. Nothing comes out of the general fund that goes to capital expenditures, so that everyone understands that. We, as a council, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Darby, and we have had a budget committee annually. We look at what our capital needs are in the future. We have certain funding set aside for all of these capital needs, whether it's roadways, whether it's parks and recreation. We were just talking to Coach and Louis a little bit ago about the needs of a parking lot at Tinsley. We have the funding available because we do prepare for the future. Whether you want to call it a crystal ball or not, I call it just common sense. That's what I went to school for, was to be a certified public accountant. I practice public accounting. I understand governmental accounting. And I'm comfortable with where I stand and where the future of this city stands financially.
All right. So I'll stop it right there. Now,
Well,
if you want me to rewind it any, I will, but I think that's enough.
Jeff, who's right and who's wrong? What we think that little segment right there is really indicative of Bossier City. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous semantics and gobbledygook. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. When you bond yourself out to the level at the end of last year, $457 million, it has to come from somewhere. And so, yeah, maybe when you have an expenditure on a capital project, you tap into a fund set up by bond money, but you have to pay the bonds back eventually. And when you're on the hook for that amount of money, that's something that's not trivial. And we can debate about whether these capital projects were necessary. Some I think are, such as the southern extension of the Arthur A. Key Way. I'm not so sure about how the northern extension has gone along, and other things as well. The arena is discussed. That was a significant expense, capital expense by the city, and it continues to pour more money into that. You had the building of a parking garage over at the boardwalk. Um, just a number of decisions I think which built things that capital expenditures that really weren't necessary, and so that's why Bossier City has the largest per capita debt of any major city in Louisiana.
So I'm about to, since you mentioned the debt, I'm about to bring up the slides and all that. But let me kind of put you on the spot a little bit, because one argument for the Century Tel Center, Century Link Center, Brookshire's Grocery, whatever it is these days. One argument for pouring that money into it is, we've heard David made the argument before for quality of life. Now, off the top of my head, I think the city's underwater $500,000 in the Berkshire's arena. Maybe more than that. I'm not sure the exact number. But in theory, the city would make that money back and possibly more, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, in sales tax revenue from bringing these events in and other things. Does that argument hold any water in your opinion?
No, not really. I mean, you look at the current schedule. I think there's maybe 6 events over the next 9 months, something like that. You're looking at a loss. You're right. Typically, it's been in that range of $500,000 a year. And okay, so we're looking around 2% sales tax collection. We're looking at the occupancy tax. You look at those events and the people theoretically that come into town, and I'm sure there's some, but not a whole lot. And I haven't run the numbers, but I would be very skeptical that it would approach that amount of money in operating again losses. We're not even talking about the capital expenditures. I mean, just plunk down, was it 1.3 million for I forget, a generator, or 300,000. There's other items that are constantly being put into it. So it's a money loser. It doesn't make it back, and you can make that quality of life argument saying, well, we need to, it may cost us money, but it gives this venue. Well, there's no reason that the city has to operate that venue. It can sell it to the private sector, and they can run it. So that doesn't make I don't think it's a very good argument.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up. I think we want to go to these slides first. Is it what you want to use for reference first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll let you take the wheel, Jeff, or Duke, and
yeah. So you see, this is a figure from the city's comprehensive annual financial report, which has to be done every year. They farm it out to some auditors, accounting firms that they compute it all. It's a requirement legally that they have to do this. They file it with the state, with the Legislative Auditor's Office. On page 15, in black and white, there's a couple of figures. One is for the business type enterprises, which is water and sewer, the arena, other things, and the other is general government. They're about the same, roughly a little under 230 million each. So I mean, there it is, black and white. That's how much the city owes. So right there on print, the city's own finances. So I don't think there's any dispute, or can be any dispute, that there's a whole lot of debt out there for Bossier City. Now, if you move on to the next one, there's Bossier City's population, 62,701, according to the 2020 census, which, by the way, was several thousand fewer than what the city had been promoting for a number of years. I think the last figure, the estimate, and it wasn't something they made up. It was something coming from the American Community Survey, which is run by the Census Bureau. They had pegged around 68,000, something like that. But lo and behold, when the census actually came out, it was really only 62,701, which is only not even 3% higher than it was in 2010. So, if you're running around talking about, well, Bossier City is this, very fast-growing, bustling city, well, it really isn't. Parish did very well. In fact, the number of people that live outside the city now in Parish, plus the other 3 minor cities in the parish, exceeds Bossier City. I think roughly now 47% of people in Bossier Parish live in the unincorporated area of Bossier Parish. All right, so that's our population figure. So, um, the first figure by the second, and here's what you come up with.
Well, let's see. Let's go down here. Oh, per capita debt.
Yep, Bossier City, 70, just a little under $7,300 each. Again, that's not I would argue, not a trivial figure, and that's especially true if you look at it in comparison to the other major cities in Louisiana, and in particular the 2 peer cities, roughly the same population as Bossier City, Kenner, and Lake Charles. And there's our figures. Bossier City at the top, so we're number 1 per capita debt, and it's not even close. I mean, Shreveport, there in second place. Understand that figure is pushed upwards by the fact that they have this huge consent decree with the EPA in their sewage system, which they've actually got ways to go on it. They've only, I think, about $375 million that they've borrowed to do that. And they're probably going to have to borrow another $800 million before it's all over. So that may change in a couple of years. You might see Shreveport fall ahead of Bossier City because of that. But yeah, it's not even close. And again, look at the peer cities. Kenner is 1/6 about both cities, and Lake Charles is about 1/9. So you have to ask the question: how is it that these other 2 cities can apparently manage their own affairs without going wildly into debt, and Bossier City hasn't made that choice? It wasn't always like this. 15 years ago, I have to look back at the exact numbers, but as I recall, Bossier City only had something like 100 to 150 million in debt, and then there was this huge explosion of spending in about the last dozen years. Well, it's a tremendous amount of borrowing, and so that's where we are today. So again, I don't find very credible arguments that say that Bossier City does not have a lot of debt, not a lot of per capita debt. I just don't find that convincing.
Well, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Duke.
Well, Jeff, isn't it? Again, I'm taking the Rex approach here, playing devil's advocate, making the other side of the argument. Is this the 2 sides of the coin thing? Meaning that some people say the American way is to operate off of debt, and And Bossier City, I think some people, in Bossier City would make the argument that, well, over the years, we've had a solid source of revenue in our, taxes. So, we're able to get bonds and be able to pay for capital projects, via these bonds because we've got a steady source of income. And to one of the points that you just made, about years ago and what Bossier's debt was back then, I think you said 150 million or maybe something to that tune. Isn't it accurate that in that, say, like the late 80s, wasn't the millage rates in Bossier was say around 28 mils versus today where we're at around 22 something mils? And
Yeah, the
could an
90s,
art
yeah. In the 90s, it was higher. It leveled off, as I recall, in and around, yeah, about 15 years ago, pretty much leveled off at where, at what we see today. Um, well, the thing is, you can look at this a couple of ways. First of all, you want to try to understand to see how much coverage the city would have in terms of revenues and debt expenditures. And actually, if you look at the ratio of debt to revenue per year, so well, basically looking at the latest figures of 2021 for all these cities. Again, Bossier City is not in very good company. At the top of the list is Shreveport. Its coverage is 385. So in other words, the debt in Shreveport is about 4 times the expected revenues, and then Bossier City is second actually at 314. So it's not that great. I mean, the other cities are a little bit less than that. Some are quite a bit less. Again, we look at Kenner, it's about 1, and you look at Lake Charles, it's below that. So in other words, they have, like in the case of Lake Charles, they have more revenues every year than they have debt outstanding. So, I suppose if they didn't want to spend on anything else, they just go ahead and pay it off in 1 year if they wanted to. That's wouldn't be the smart thing to do, obviously. But that's the meaning of that statistic. So in other words, the capacity that the city has, um, again, it appears over leveraged to me. And then second, of course, the second issue here is, do we really want to spend all this money on capital projects in the first place? I mean, do we really have such, quote, needs that we had to go out and borrow so much money and do so many things with it? Assuming, of course, and there are other issues here. For example, I think Republican Brian Hammonds in particular on the city council has questioned the change orders that seem to so often come through that kick the uh, kick the prices of these projects up and up, and why that they don't seem to be anticipated. So, whether the money is being spent wisely in terms of the actual execution of the projects is yet another issue. Um, so, I would argue to that again. First of all, that city is urged, and then secondly, that not all the capital projects that contribute to this over leveraging were things that need to be done. So, for example, I would say, again, going back to the arena, parking garage, etc.
So, in your opinion, let me just again, might catch you off guard a little bit, but in your opinion, is the city of Bossier being run like it should fiscally, or are there areas for improvement?
Yeah, see, where the debt's there, has to be dealt with. We can't do anything. Really can't reduce it now. You're just going to have to manage it over the next 20 to 30 years to bring this down. So if the city stops borrowing so much money and just uses what it has, I mean, this is in my mind going to be better governance. But the problem is the opportunity was missed. It was missed starting almost 30 years ago when you had the windfall, the initial windfall of casino dollars coming to the city. And you know, a couple other things elsewhere, the shale boom. You could argue the sale of Bossier Medical Center, although that was a comedy of errors in the sense that you know, the city was offered allegedly $42 million by Willis Knighton in the mid 90s to buy the thing. The city said no, they'd rather have that little bauble out there. Willis Knighton, we know the rest of the story, opens a hospital, drives Bossier Medical Center into the ground, loses, I think, $3 million in its last year under city operation. End up selling it for 2/3 the price it could have gotten. Some of that money is now in a separate fund, and the city uses that to subsidize certain things. But you know, the point being that you know, what's done is done, and you know, here on out, the city can spend more responsibly in terms of capital expenditures. You know, but the opportunity is lost. I mean, if you know, just kind of the back of the envelope calculations, if you were to take just that 230 or so million that's in general government, and if you cut that in half, so you just say, all right, well, you know, let's say we didn't build the carriageway, or we didn't build the arena, you know, or something like that. So we lop off 115 odd million. If you run the numbers on that in terms of the money that would then be freed up for other things, it's like $10.5 million a year the city could be spending on other things, pay raises for employees, you know, lower property taxes, you know, whatever. So that was a lost opportunity. So that was not the road taken. Was in my mind irresponsible, and we're just going to have to live with it now.
Well, it's all very interesting, and you know, it's the math, and the math is what it is, and you know, like you said, we're going to have to deal with it forever, and you know, it just seems like our city council members, not going to name names, but people like King David, want to paint this rosy picture that everything's just fine, and that they're, you know, he's a CPA and he knows what he's doing, and them young whippersnappers just have no clue. Anytime anybody just asks a legitimate question. And yeah, I agree. We're going to have to deal with this far into the future, and like you said, it is what it is.
Yep. Again, opportunity lost, and yeah, we'll just got to pay it off, and just hope that in the future, future councils don't so freely spend on all these various things that, yeah, if you're a politician in the city, you can walk around and say, look, you know, I did that. All right, that's nice, but was it really something that was needed by the city?
Right. Well, yeah, did we have to borrow the money to be able to do that? Because I think the bond commission, most of those may be wrong on that. I think the last time I looked up the Cypress district, it was somewhere around there. So, you know, that interest does add up.
City's debt, yeah, between 2% and 4%. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Duke, you got any other questions or discussion?
No, I think I did have another question, but I think we covered it right there. And Jeff, you know, we appreciate you coming on, and look forward to having you again down the road. I'm certain Bossier City is going to give us another opportunity to chat. I have no doubts about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's not the city, the parish, and you know, this is Bossier, so.
That's right.
All right. Well, appreciate your time tonight. Appreciate you going through and explaining those numbers, because, you know, sometimes Duke and I get a little emotional and fired up, and so it's not the easiest thing for us to just go down the math and go down the numbers. So, and hey, anytime you've got something that, you know, you want to get the information out, we try to, you know, share your Bossier Views stuff out some and all that, but let us know and we'll be glad to share it out. Or like Duke said, have you back on. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, appreciate it, and thanks to you guys for doing what you do.
Hey, we're trying. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Sure.
let's see if I can switch screens and. Okay, so that's a lot to take in. And look, folks, Duke and I can allude to, the problems and all that, and we don't sometimes necessarily go down all the math number by number. We're given the bigger picture of everything, and sometimes it's good to have, somebody like Jeff, because that's literally what he does, to go down point by point.
Yeah, I mean, because you're a lot of people. The last thing they want to do is like go through audited financials and go through numbers and all that. But what they do want to kind of know, and they want to hear the short and sweet version of it. And they want a little bit of validation and some explanation. And to be quite honest with you, that's what I wanted to hear from Jeff. I wanted to know, where does he derive his numbers from? How is he coming to the conclusions that he's coming to? I mean, and he said he's getting his numbers from the legislative auditor's office. And he, basically articulated what his rationale for is, you know, the debt. Why does he see that as being such an issue? Well, I mean, frankly, Bossier City, according to his numbers and those statistics, ranks right up there at the top of all municipalities in Louisiana, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, that's not necessarily a number one position that the city of Bossier wants to have.
Now, I get, and I didn't ask Jeff this, and maybe we will down the road, but your income, and obviously you can't, when you start talking the debt to income, you can't get a loan for something if you don't have income to be able to back up getting that loan. But I guess between me and you, it comes down to whether or not what's the best way to do business. If you've got credit, use all the credit that you can get, or, if you've got income, use your income to pay for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. I mean, it's not much different than getting a home loan. Y'all probably have to go through this with clients or potential clients all the time. So it's much like that, just on a bigger scale. It's just the numbers are basically bigger. So let me double check our audio. Somebody give me some more comments now. To let y'all know, Jeff's connection was not great, and Duke's is being a little scattered. My may also be tonight too. So let us know how the audio feed is now with just me and Duke on. And let's see if we have some issues. I'm going to pay attention to the phone for a second, so that'll give you an opportunity to pick a soapbox if you want.
Well, I also noticed that our numbers just dropped from right around 100 to like 40 something, just like at the snap of a finger. So we may have dropped off of one of the platforms. I don't know where or which, but
check that out and see if I can find out.
Anyway, so the I'm not going to pull that up. So the constitutional amendments, I think we're going to go to that next. I think this is a good segue into that, because a lot of folks are probably wondering how they need to vote on these things. And boy, the number is still steady dropping there.
Yeah, let me see here. Duke, can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly fine. So all of you watching,
I think we're dropping off of Facebook now. I don't see us live at all. All right, we'll stay online for a second. Let me switch over to YouTube, see if the YouTube feed's going. We may have to restart the show. We haven't had to do that in a long, long, long time.
I don't remember ever having to really do that.
Yeah, we had to do it a couple of times in the beginning, so we're just going to sit here and ramble on for just a minute. Let me check and see. Bossier Watch.
Hey, Sabrina Lana dear. Hey, Ashley Law.
Yeah,
Larry Hawkins.
YouTube feed is fine. We are still live and good on YouTube. So we've got an issue with Facebook. Let's see. Frozen for me. All right, well, just stick with us for a second, folks, and let's see. Yeah. Greg says Bossier Parish Police Jury is jamming the signals.
Yeah, they know they're up front and center.
Yeah, so we're going to give it a second and see if we come back online. So let's see here. Let me make sure nothing's uploading on my end. That might be causing us any issues. So, Duke, take over the mic for a second. I'm going to do a quick technical check. So, figure out something to talk about for a minute.
All right, so let me go here and I'm going to pull up that constitutional amendment thing and start kind of going through that on the PAR guide. If you wanted to share my screen and I can kind of talk through these things a little bit, if you can do that real quick.
Yeah, let's see here. Duke's screen. So here we go.
All right. So, you guys may not have realized it or not, but we have an election coming up, and you're going to have to go vote on quite a few constitutional amendments, and it's that time of the year. One of the things I want to point out and give some credit here, and y'all hear Bo in the background losing his mind. I'm assuming that my lovely wife has made it home. Why she is not still working, I guess I'm going to have to get the whip out, but it's neither here nor there. So, if you look up here at the top, support for this report was provided by the Alta and John Franks Foundation, and the Colin C. Diebold Private Foundation. I want to give credit to the John Franks Foundation. That's some folks out of our neck of the woods. And, the John Franks, you may not have realized it. They've got a new wildlife management area over there just off I-49, which was Frank's property that they donated to the state. And so it's another place for people to go and enjoy the outdoors. So with that said, the PAR guide is kind of the source that we're going to use as a reference to go down these constitutional amendments. And what I will tell you is that numerous legislators, if you went and got a recommendation from each and every one of them as to what you should vote for and what you should not vote for, they're going to each give you a different answer.
Let me cut you off for a second. I think we're permanently frozen in time on Facebook. I'm still getting some notes in. Can anybody, is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear us on Facebook? I'm only showing about 43 people, but I'm showing us to be completely frozen on Facebook. So I think we're gonna have
to reboot.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to restart the show. Let me double check one more time. Yep, it didn't come back. Yeah. All right. So everybody that's watching on YouTube, I'm going to restart the show. Hopefully it will come back on and just grab where it left off. It may come up in a new feed. So if you're watching on YouTube, hold on. We'll just be right back. So let me see if I can get us back up on YouTube. Stay with us, folks. We apologize. This is first time it's happened in a while. So I'm going to hit finish. We're coming back online in hopefully 30 seconds. All right, here we go.